Hello and welcome, family, to another episode of Wake Up Africa. My name is Dr. Mumbi. How you doing? How's everything going? I really do pray that you are well in all your ways and that you're moving into living life truly on your own terms, in your own narrative, and you know that you've got like a bird's eye view on what is happening in the world and that you're seeing the deeper intricacies of everything that's happening. There's been a lot of talk over the last week about the terrible Melilla massacre. If you don't know what that is, definitely check on Twitter. And basically, there's been so much that's been covered on this family, where our brothers and sisters were attempting to cross over from Morocco into Spain, about 2,000 of them. And, the Moroccan government released tear gas, beat them down. I mean, there's just such horrific pictures, family. And in the end, they say about 23 people lost their lives. Many human rights advocates and human rights groups say the numbers are much bigger than that, family. And there's been massive backlash across the world because we are in between narratives, family. Our African brothers will not be crossing over to Europe forever. That narrative is ending. In fact, we might even see the reverse, which is why we're seeing the deals like the UK and Rwanda trying to bring refugees here to create that path already. But the reason it even took me so long to speak about it is because really, it doesn't serve anything to come and repeat these negative stories unless we're seeing a change in the narrative. And I'm happy to report that there is a change in the narrative because Africa is watching and Africa is taking notes. And I think that's something that has really surprised the world. And it started with what happened with Ukraine. How, our African nations went to the African Union, they went to the United Nations Security Council, just like they've done with Melilla massacre, to condemn what has happened and, demand investigations, etc., etc. And our people felt like that wasn't enough. But there was a shift in the vibe, where all of us Africans remembered Ukraine, And we saw it a few months later when the Ukraine president tried to hold a meeting with, the African presidents and only 2 showed up. 4 leaders overall. So that brings me to the point of the Melilla massacre. Is that, there's been a very strong debate for the last 2 years, especially, it's gained momentum in the last 2 years, about how African immigrants and African refugees are treated different from Mzungu refugees, from Arab refugees, and how many are sold into slavery and all these other things. And it's all about even the narrative around it, which is so negative and low vibe, that always makes it want to seem like, our people are running away from poverty, they're running away from this, they're running away from that, but they don't tell you the underlying story of how Europe is responsible for why a lot of these African youths are trying to run away from Africa to go to Europe, not because of even old policies, but current policies that keep their African nations with no opportunities for the youth, etc., etc. And you know what? There were many different African countries that came out and spoke against them. And at the United Nations Security Council, Kenya, I think Kenya is still the chair of the Security Council, I think for a year or something. They said, we have observed the Security Council and its members show great concern about the fate of refugees from other conflicts. The latest and most dramatic instance being the result of the war in Ukraine. We believe that Africans fleeing the wars and insecurity in their countries deserve equal levels of regard. As we have done before, Kenya strongly condemns the mistreatment of all migrants and refugees wherever they may be. We reiterate our call for the promotion and protection of the rights of people of African descent by all countries without exception. And, you know, and then the report shows that the emerging chaos that happened on the Moroccan border actually was caused by the Moroccan guards who fired tear gas at them and led to a stampede, crush, killing at least 24 migrants. The real numbers have not been given out. But, you know, and Kenya called for the immediate investigation as chair of the United Nations Security Council. But one of the things that I found interesting about the statement that Kenya said is that we urge the European Union and the African Union to take every effort to ensure the movement to Europe for multiple reasons, some having to do with its history with Africa, is safe and dignified. The young Africans undertaking this journey are doing so for different reasons. Some are economic migrants trying to survive from livelihoods that have been destroyed by, well, the effects of climate change, but I would say by the Babylonian system. And so now is where, you know, the narrative is changing on this. And what I felt from this, what I felt that was achieved is Africa is watching. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, family. Those pictures were spread so fast through Facebook, through WhatsApp, through all our, you know, our networks. And it's painful to see someone who looks like you lying lifeless with the Moroccan police just looking at them. And Africa is watching, family. And there's been a lot of talk, you know, European Union, I think 50 members of the European Union Parliament came out and condemned Spain. Spain also came and condemned, didn't attack Morocco directly, but actually said, you know, it was an attack on their national sovereignty. And I'll tell you actually the deeper spiritual dynamics. I think I'll do a separate show on that. The deeper spiritual dynamics of what's been going on. Because Spain said something very significant. They feel like this is an invasion. 2,000 young black youth rushing the Spanish border. They saw it as like a territorial, you know, infringement. And Morocco has suffered a massive loss because there's been, you know, Morocco has been trying to, been on this charm offensive with the rest of Africa to make it feel like we are one. No, there's no separation between North Africa and the rest of continental Africa. But this has killed that. And ironically, Spain and Morocco were even having issues. There was even issues with this border. They just recently opened it and then this happened. Was it a sacrifice? It doesn't matter, but what's happening, whether it was or not, family. Because the thing about narratives is they're continuously written. There's no time to pause. But Africa has sat up and taken notice. It's not business as usual on the motherland. We are a new breed of African family. You can't do the same old and accept the same old reaction from us. It's not happening. And Africa has sat up and paid attention and they're taking notes. And you know what? As I wind up, the United Nations Human Rights Commission, UNHCR, High Commission for Human, whatever, the Human Rights Wing of the United Nations, they even had to come up with a special resolution 2 years ago talking about how African refugees are supposed to be treated like all other refugees. And we saw the blatant discrimination with some of these media when the Ukraine war broke out. And there were several wars going on the motherland, all about natural resources, all about personal interests. But the minute, I mean, even the Mzungu reporters, they couldn't hide it. It was shocking to see blue-eyed, blonde-haired children as refugees. I mean, but we're all supposed to be treated equal according to the Babylonian system. Anyway, stay tuned, family. I'll be telling you the deeper dynamics of what's really going on with this whole migration of our youth to Europe. It's much deeper than you might think. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast, Wake Up Africa, which is basically news. Wake Up Africa with Dr. Mumbi Saraki, which is basically a news channel. And also check out our spiritual show, Dr. Mumbi Show, the podcast edition. If you'd like us to continue to bring the Wake Up Africa news to our people and to support us in doing so, definitely consider sending us a love donation or supporting us on our Patreon page, where we do share way more information and there's a lot more exclusive content there, and you get to see everything first there as we migrate it to the public platforms. Until next time, family. Tuko pamoja.